Hey there guys, I am SonicGhost and welcome to another bonus episode of Let's Play Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the preview demo here of Majora's Mask. So this demo was released prior to the game's Western release, and you can go ahead back in the day and play this on a kiosk station at your local store. Something a lot of games did back in the early days of video games, but we don't see kiosk stations anymore in stores. In fact, we barely see demos of games being released on digital storefronts. But that's not the point. The point is we're here to take a look at this preview demo, as since the name implies, this is a preview of the game, meaning that there are differences in this version of Majora's Mask compared to the final release. So, starting off here, we have 8 different scenes of the game we can start off in. Starting off, we can begin our adventure in the very beginning with the prologue of the game. We can start things off over in Clock Town and explore the main town of Majora's Mask. We can start in Termina Field and explore the main overworld of the game. We can make our way through the Pirate's Fortress in Great Bay. We can challenge the Gorons to the Goron races in Snowhead. We can take on the Zora Challenge, whatever that is. We can make our way through our first dungeon of the game, Woodfall Temple, and even fight our first boss of the game, Odawa. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with our first option here, the prologue. So this prologue here is just basically starting up a brand new file from the final version of Majora's Mask. So we get to go through the whole song and dance of watching the intro cutscene until we get control of Link, taking him through the very beginning sections of the game. So I'm actually going to jump ahead here until the point we can control Link for the first time. I am playing this on emulator using save states here. That way we can just jump around different sections, making things a lot easier on us, just to showcase this demo. If we pause the game, we can see we have no items and no masks at this point. All we have is the sword and shield on our back, nothing else. If we jump ahead a little bit further here in the prologue section, we can go ahead and control Deku Link here in Clock Town, and this section of the game basically plays out in the same way as your first beginning cycle of the main game of Majora's Mask. So here in this prologue section, we can go ahead, make our way throughout Clock Town here as a Deku, making preparations to confront Skull Kid up on the top of Clock Tower. So I'm not going to be playing through this whole prologue section, as it is basically unchanged compared to the final product. So at any time, if you want to play a different section of Majora's Mask, all you got to do is pause the game, and while paused, press the B button to quit, and doing so will take you back to the main menu, and now we can select one of the other options here. So I'm going to go ahead and select Clock Town. So jumping into Clock Town here, as we can kind of notice already, there's no music playing in this area, which is a little weird. If we leave the area and re-enter Clock Town, then the music starts playing normally. So for whatever reason in this demo, when you load up Clock Town from the menu, the music just doesn't play, which is a little bit of a weird glitch, and as we can see, there are some glitches in this version of the game that were later fixed before the final product came out. If we go ahead and pause the game, we can see we have a wide variety of different items here. All we're really missing is one of the 6 empty bottles, our Fierce Deity's mask, the boss's remains, and upgrades for Link. So we have his Kokiri sword and Hero Shield, which are the base values of those said weapons, and then the base bomb bag and the base quiver. But we have everything else, which even includes the songs here in the game. So that's pretty interesting, but notice how we do have 3 different items equipped. Our Ocarina, the Hero's Bow, and a red potion, but the game says we have a green potion equipped instead, which that's a little confusing. Which one is this? Do we have a green potion on C-Down or a red potion? Red potion's over here. If I equip this, I got 2 red potions. What's going on here? Well, if we go ahead and take out a bomb, we can see which one is this. So I'm going to go ahead and use up both magic and also take some damage. And now we're going to press C-Down to see which one of the 2 potions this really is. So as we can see, we did get healed drinking that potion. If we pause the game, now we see that that green potion was used up. So for some reason, the game says you have green potion in your inventory, and it does equip it to C-Down, but whenever it's doing that, it's actually equipping your red potion instead, and it's equipping over your green potion slot. That's a weird glitch. Again, this is something they fixed for the final product, so we don't see that in the final release. But we can go ahead and grab ourselves our first piece of heart up here, and doing so, we'll see a difference here. We can see the graphic for the piece of heart is different looking here compared to the final product. It's a lot smaller compared to the final release of Majora's Mask, but everything else here, as we can see, plays out the same. Collect 4 pieces of heart and you'll get a heart container. But notice how we have 8 heart containers starting off here in the game. Outside the prologue demo, all the other options start you with 8 hearts, which is kind of weird because then you get to think, okay, well if you're starting with 8 hearts, what heart pieces and heart containers do you already have collected? Well, the answer is none of them. For some reason, outside in the prologue demo, when you start with 8 hearts, these extra 5 hearts you get, they're not legitimate hearts in the game. So, if you manage to collect all the heart containers and all the heart pieces here in Majora's Mask, you would actually have 5 extra hearts in this version compared to the final product, making a total of 25 hearts instead of 20. So that's a little bit weird, but as I just said there, you can try to go around all of Termina and collect all the hearts, and you can kind of just do that because there is no time limit for playing this demo. You can kind of just play this for however long you want, which doesn't seem like the best idea for a kiosk unit, as you can have a long line behind you if you're trying to beat the game. But here we see that the owl statue in this area, it hasn't been activated yet, which begs the question, have any of the owl statues been activated here in this demo? Well, if we go ahead and play the Song of Soaring, we can find out. So let's see if we can warp to any of the owls here in Termina. So as we can see, unfortunately, none of the owl statues have been activated in this demo. It doesn't matter which one of the 8 options you start in, all of them do not have a single owl active. So if you do want to use the Song of Soaring, you need to activate these owls on your own. So let's go ahead and start off with this one here in Clocktown. Activating the owl, now we can warp to it, but more importantly, we can go ahead and check this thing out and see that now there's another difference here. Notice the text is different here compared to the final product. That is because in this demo, these owl statues were not programmed yet to save. So we essentially have the Japanese owl statues in the English version of Majora's Mask. In the final product, you can save to these owls with a temporary save. So, since we can't save here, we can go ahead and play the Song of Time and save the game that way. But that does raise an interesting question though, because when we were on that main menu, notice how we didn't have a file select screen. So we can go ahead and save the game here, but if we quit out of our game at this point and go back to the main menu, we won't be able to continue where we left off. So because we don't have a file select screen, all the progress that we are saving at this point is only for this play session. Once we quit out to the main menu, the save will be deleted. But now there's another interesting quirk here. When we played the Song of Time to travel back in time, it's putting us back into that state where we have traveled back in time for the very first time. So we're now watching the cutscene of time traveling for the very first time in the game. So for whatever reason, all of the 8 options here, whenever you play the Song of Time, will do this. And it's kind of weird because when you go back to Clocktown, you're all of a sudden a Deku Scrub, and we never had that Deku Mask equipped. We were a human going back through time, so that's a weird quirk. The game automatically transformed me into a Deku Scrub, even though I didn't have the mask on, so what gives there? Again, these are some weird quirks that were ironed out for the final release. They didn't really think this one through, I guess, and it basically acts like we just completed the first cycle in the game. But getting through all of this intro text, we'll get control of Link once again, and we can go ahead and see that the piece of heart we collected along with the owl statue have both been saved, so we do have that piece of heart still in our inventory, and also that owl statue has still been hit, so at least there's that. But I want to go ahead and equip the Deku Mask here and transform back into a human, and there you go, now we're back human Link. So we actually were a Deku Scrub even without the mask equipped, which is something you can only do in the very beginning of your adventure. Speaking of masks, I want to go ahead and equip the Mask of Sense here. And putting it on, notice how Link is not making any winking sounds at this point? When you equip the Mask of Sense and you leave Link just standing here, he will make winking sounds trying to sniff out things, and that doesn't exist in this preview demo for some reason. He makes all the other winking sound effects for attacking or rolling around, but he just doesn't have a sound effect when you stand still, something that the final version of the game has. But outside of that, the mask still works as intended, so we can still get magic mushrooms with this, and it still works, but this is just a weird quirk. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and quit out and select a different state here in the game, so let's go ahead and start over in Termina Field. So starting off in Termina Field, we're going to notice something here that's a little bit different. Notice how Epona is over here on the west side of Termina Field. Something that is very different compared to the final game, as in the final version, Epona always goes back to Romani Ranch when you go back in time using the Song of Time. Well, in this demo, Epona's always just going to be over here in the west side of Terminal Field. Doesn't matter if you go back in time or not, Epona will always be there, making it so you can— what the heck just happened there? Okay, I'm a little distracted by Epona just clipping. Sure, ignore that. Epona will always start over in the west side of Termina Field, allowing you to explore the other areas in the game where you need Epona, say like Great Bay or the Ikana Canyon side. But coming over here into Milk Road, we do have our boulder here. We can go ahead and destroy that said boulder. So, let's get off of Epona and now equip ourselves both the Goron Mask and also our Powder Keg. One thing I should mention is that all the transformation masks do have their cutscenes play for the first time. You cannot skip these, and it doesn't matter what file you select on the main menu. This is the case with all of them. So, unfortunately, you do have to watch at least one of these transformation cutscenes once. If you do want to skip the other ones, all you need to do is just equip the other transformation masks, put them on with another transformation mask on, and now when we do equip another one of these masks, say the Zora mask, we can skip the cutscene. So, that makes things a little bit easier, and that's something you can also do in the main game of Majora's Mask as well. It's not just a thing you do in this demo. Well, as we can see, entering an area here, and it doesn't matter what area we have entered, it treats things like it's our first time here, so we'll always get that intro cutscene. But since we do have Epona, we will see that if we go over the way Epona would be, obviously she's not going to be there as we already have her with us. But you may be asking yourself, wait, what happens if you try to see where Epona is if you already don't have her? Well, skipping around here again with save states, we only have some of our base items here as this is part of the prologue demo section. And I just completed the first cycle gaining control of Human Link here. So if we go over to the quest status screen, we will see that I don't have a Epona song yet. And I want to see what's different in this area when you don't have a Epona song. So we're going to be entering Ronnie's Ranch a little bit early using some glitches here. So utilizing Infinite Sword Glitch along with some bomb hovering, we're going to go ahead and just get into the area a lot earlier than the game expects. So with Infinite Sword Glitch, gonna drop a bomb and start flying with my messed up hitbox here. I'm gonna go ahead and fly up until I can get to this ledge up here. Then we're gonna deactivate the glitch so we can go ahead and roll right around this boulder, holding right. Now we're past it and we can enter the ranch. So here we are once again in Romani's Ranch, and I can already hear my horse a little bit. So let's go ahead and run over to where the Epona would be. And unfortunately, I have to go the long way because I don't have any of my items just yet. I don't have the Goron form, I don't have the bunny hood. So I'm just going to go ahead and roll over here. But when we get into view where Epona would be, notice how right here, this is where the cutscene would play normally, but there is no cutscene being played right now. Instead, we have nothing going on, which includes no horse. Where's Epona? She's supposed to be here, but she's not in the pen. Where is she? I have no idea where she is. Sounds like come behind the what? Okay. Looks like in the demo, they moved the trigger for the cutscene? For some reason, the cutscene is not located over where it's supposed to be in the final product, but Link does get teleported on the other side of the ranch. We were definitely not behind Romani before. We're over here on the side of this fence. But yes, we can hear Epona, but she's nowhere to be found here in the ranch. She's somewhere around this area, but just not in view. It makes me think that Epona's just somewhere out of bounds, but that's the only logical explanation I can get, as rolling around the field, we don't see our horse, so that's weird. Epona starts off over in the west side of Termina Field, but in the prologue demo, she starts nowhere, and that's confusing. But let's go ahead at this point and quit back into the main menu here and select one of our other states, say like the Pirate's Fortress. So loading into this area here, we can go ahead and make our way through the entirety of the Pirate's Fortress here and collect all the Zora eggs and the hookshot. But there's an interesting thing about this. We don't need to get the hookshot as we already have it, because you still start off with all the items here and even all of the masks that we need. So we can equip something like the Stones mask, and this area becomes a joke here in the demo because no guard can see you at this point, and you can just walk up in front of these ladies and just say, hey, how you doing? It doesn't matter. They can't see us. So that kind of breaks this area a bit. The fact that they gave you all the masks in pretty much every single file outside of the prologue one is a very interesting idea, and I don't know why they did that specifically. To me, it does break things. So, using the mask, we can actually come into this room early to get the hook shot, and since we already have the hook shot, let's go ahead and equip it, and go to the very top of the room, which again, we can't really do this normally in this version of the game. In the Japanese version, there were glitches again around this state, but not in the American version. But as we can see, going anywhere further in that room will still kick us out. So it doesn't matter if you have the stone mask and the hook shot, they can still easily catch you and just throw you out of the fortress. Let's go ahead and quit once again and go back to the main menu. At this point, I want to see what that Zora challenge is. No. No. Not again. I raced these beavers 4 times. In fact, no, I had to race these dudes 8 times because I played the 3DS version too. Oh, no. Can we not? I'm not. I'm leaving. See you later. Not doing this. Let's go to the Woodfall Temple instead. So loading up here into Woodfall Temple, what we notice a pretty big difference as soon as we pause the game here. So pausing the game, we see we only have the items that we could have at this point in Majora's Mask. So we don't have our bow, we don't have our hookshot, but strangely enough, they gave you 2 bottles here, which is weird because at this point in Majora's Mask, you can only get 1 bottle in the game. But we can see we do have all the masks, which having later masks like the Goron and Zora mask can kind of break some elements in this dungeon, as these masks you wouldn't be able to attain until after you beat this dungeon for the first time, so that's interesting. But also, if we go over to our map screen, we see we have the map, compass, and even the boss key already collected, which, that's interesting to give you the boss key at this point. Since we already have another file on our file select here in the main menu for fighting Odawa, that just seems redundant to give us the boss key in the Woodfall Temple section, instead of just having us go get it. So, a little bit of an interesting thing, but also notice how we have 8 keys. That's also a little weird because, why do we need 8 keys in this dungeon? This dungeon doesn't even have 8 locked doors. Well, that's more or less a thing that kind of just transfers over from the debugging stages of Majora's Mask, as just like with Ocarina of Time, the default save files for debugging has you start off with 8 keys. So because of that, you can go to any locked door and just make progress right away. So there is that, but we're not going to make our way through the entirety of Woodfall Temple. Instead, we're going to go back to the main menu and just go straight to the boss battle. So let's go fight Odawa. Here I want to go ahead and pause the game and see that now we have 1 extra item equipped at this point. We have the Hero's Bow. But also notice if we go to the map screen, that's the map of Termina. That's not the dungeon map, which, that seems wrong. If we play the Song of Soaring in this state, normally playing the Song of Soaring will warp you to the beginning of a dungeon, but not here. Because the map screen's displaying Termina instead of the dungeon map, the game is treating us like we're outside in Termina itself, meaning that it's only trying to warp us to owl statues, but there's no owl statues hit, so that kind of complicates matters. So the only way to leave here is either beat the boss or to play the Song of Time. But since we do have a good amount of items here along with other transformation masks, we could just fight Odawa. So you know what? That's what we're going to go ahead and do. Let's fight our first boss in the game, Odawa. So in this demo, this boss fight plays out basically the exact same way as it does in the final version, so we're going to go ahead and just use the same strategy we normally use. But this does give me a good opportunity to talk about one of the things about this demo I don't really care for much, and that's by default, you have switch targeting on. You don't have hold targeting. Since there's no option menu in this demo, you can't change the targeting system from switch to hold. The only way to do that is utilizing something like a Game Shark today. So if you're not a fan of switch targeting like myself, you kind of just have to deal with it in this demo. But now with Odawa defeated, he drops a heart container and his remains. Collecting the heart container, we notice the difference with this, just like with the piece of heart. The icon for the heart container is a lot smaller compared to the final product, so this wasn't really finalized yet, and it definitely looks weird in comparison. Let's go ahead now and collect Odawa's remains and get out of here. But on this file, we still have all of the songs, including the Oath to Order. So, you may be thinking to yourself, after you beat this boss, you learn the Oath to Order, so what happens now? Well, nothing, really. When you beat a boss and collect the remains, it will actually bring you back to the main menu. So while there's no timer for this demo, you still get kicked to the main menu after you defeat a boss and grab its remains. And this goes for every single boss in Majora's Mask. So this means you actually can't go to the moon. We can actually try that right now by loading our Clock Town file and confront Skull Kid right away. So let's go ahead and actually make our way up to the top of Clock Tower here, as I do want to confront Skull Kid. But first things first, I'm going to pick up this heart piece. Now picking this up, we're actually going to go ahead and utilize our explosives here and just going to fly over the door, as I don't want to wait until the final hours to actually get up to Clock Tower here. I'm just going to make my way up to the top of Clock Tower now. So utilizing Infinite Sword Glitch, we'll go ahead and bomb hover a little upwards here, lock onto our explosive, turn around, and now let's hover up a little bit more and jump over the door to get to the top of Clock Tower. So, since we are past the prologue section here, this cutscene plays out in the same way as it does in the final version, where Tattle is mad at Skull Kid and also warns Tail about what's going to happen. But yeah, everything else here about this cutscene plays the same. What I want to do is I want to play the Oath to Order here, as I want to see what happens when you play the Oath to Order when you don't have any of the boss remains. You can't do this normally in Majora's Mask, as in order to learn the Oath to Order, you need to get at least one of the 4 boss remains. So let's go ahead and play the song and see if any of the 4 giants show up. Things look correct so far. Playing the Oath to Order, that makes the whole world shake and Skull Kid looks surprised. Now if we listen closely, we can hear the giants calling out. So it does sound like the giants are going to show up here. Even though we have none of the giants saved, it sounds like they're still going to come to our aid regardless. Okay, something doesn't seem right in this cutscene. We would see at least the giant from the swamp come to our aid, but no one's showing up. So if you do have the Oath to Order, but you have none of the boss remains, none of the giants show up. This is something that the devs never intended you to do, but yet at the same time, there's still a cutscene that plays for no giants. This is the case in the final product as well, so this is a very interesting thing. It's not just a thing that exists here in the demo, but because in the demo they start us off with all the songs, including the Oath, then yes, we can play the song, but have no one show up. It's kind of weird. And since we can't get any of the boss remains, there is no way to get to the moon in this demo. The only way you get into the moon in this preview demo is utilizing Game Shark codes. So essentially, to get to the final area of the game, you need to cheat. There's no way to beat this demo. This cutscene just looks weird without the giants, because it's so cinematic around the world of Termina, but nothing's happening. And it's weird just to not see even one of the giants here. But that's it. No giants show up. And at this point, we need to play the Song of Time to go back in time and try again. So that's our only option out of here, but I'm actually gonna let the timer run out and let the moon crash, as I want to see, is there anything different in this demo when the moon crashes? At this point, our timer hits 0, so now the moon collides with Termina, and since none of the 4 giants showed up, this moon can't be stopped. Though in the demo, when the time runs out in your 3-day cycle, the moon will collide with Termina, and we already know what that means. When the moon collides with the land, your cycle is over, and all the progress that we just made is completely wiped, as at this point, we go back to dawn of the first day. As we can see here, the cutscene plays out the same way as it does in the final game. When you let the moon crash, it just destroys the entirety of Clock Tower and makes its way into the rest of Clock Town itself. Which in a sense will just destroy not just Termina, but the entire planet when you think about it. Moon crashing down the whole planet would just destroy everything. You met with a terrible fate, haven't you? So now that the moon crashed, we are sent back here to the very beginning of our 3-day cycle. We have 72 hours remaining, and as we can see, we still have all of our items equipped. So it did send us back in the same way as in the final product. But loading back into Clock Town. Hey, look at that, we got music, that's different. Already a good sign, but if we come up here, notice how the piece of heart returned? That's weird, because if I go on my quest status, the piece of heart's still collected. That's weird. The game says I have the piece of heart, but it's here. If I collect the piece of heart now, I get the piece of heart, so I essentially just duplicated this thing. So yeah, 2 pieces of heart from the same section. So, yeah, for some reason, when the moon crashes here in this demo, it acts like you played the Song of Time and saves your progress. Something that the base game never does. So this obviously was a glitch that was fixed for the final release of Majora's Mask, as when the moon crashes in the final product, it wipes all your progress and sends you back to the last save that you made with the Song of Time. It doesn't save the game when it sends you back in time. Something that this demo, I'm honestly surprised lets happen. It wipes all of our other stuff, like it removed all of our bombs, but it kept the heart piece. But that's pretty much everything in this demo. Everything else about the game plays the same, if we can still explore the rest of Termina and do all the same stuff here as in the final product. So, with that, that's going to conclude this video. Overall, this is a very interesting version of Majora's Mask. Since this was an earlier version of the game, it does have some glitches that were later fixed before its Western release, but none of these glitches are really game-breaking. The only game-breaking one I could really mention is how the moon crash saves your progress, allowing you to kind of just duplicate items in the game. But outside of that, everything else was more of a cosmetic or even just an audible glitch of some kind. Nothing really major. The fact that we have 8 different sections of the game we can try out in this demo is really interesting, and the fact that there's no time limit makes it so you can just play this game for as long as you want on a kiosk station, which might have caused some problems back in the day, but since if you do try to collect the boss remains, you get kicked back here to the main menu, this version obviously is unbeatable in its current state. So without using game shark codes, you can only really just explore the world of Termina and kind of just make your way through dungeons and try out some of the side quests, but you can't actually beat the game. So if you wanted to play the full game, obviously you would need to buy the official release of Majora's Mask. But that's pretty much it for this video, so thank you guys for watching. I definitely enjoyed trying out this preview demo, and it's something I do wish I had a chance of trying out back in the day at a kiosk station. I never saw one of these around in my area, so unfortunately I missed out, but glad I had the opportunity to check the demo out now. Thank you guys for watching, and with that, I'll see you guys next time.